I'm watching that game, and afterwards, the big talk is, I can't believe Amari Cooper wasn't on the field for that big down for the Cowboys. And I'm like, that's your complaint? I tell my kids all the time, not interested in the problem. Find me a solution. Carson Wentz hasn't had his best receivers or running backs for a month. And you're whining about Dak not having Amari Cooper for a play? Carson Wentz has made 3 heroes 3 weeks in a row. Boston Scott against the Giants, Greg Ward against Washington, and Dallas Goedert against Dallas. Every week he has to make a new hero. And Dak didn't have Amari Cooper for one big play. Carson Wentz, first drive of the game, his best player, Zach Ertz, literally gets split in half. They put ace bandages on him just to keep him together, I think. So from that play on, he didn't have his top receivers, his top backs. He had backups to backups and didn't have his top tight end healthy. And yet, he wins a game. So his best target gets hurt. Forget the cluster injuries all year, offensive line, wide receiver, running back. His best tight end gets hurt in the first drive. Carson Wentz, in the last 4 games, has 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and the only picks on a Hail Mary. He is taking a rickety, broken-down stagecoach across the Sahara Desert, and he's pulling it by himself. And you're telling me Dak didn't have Amari Cooper for a play? That's like Dak complaining that he couldn't find a changing station for his Tesla app, and the whole road trip is canceled. Give me a break. This is what franchise quarterbacks are. And you don't want it to be this. I've said this. A franchise quarterback, you can't ask him 16 weeks to carry the team. That's not fair. But you can ask a franchise quarterback, if you're paying him $35 million, listen, we've had a multitude of injuries. We got backups to backups. Could you carry us for like a month? That's reasonable. And that's what you need. You can't tell me that Dak didn't have Zeke on a huge carry. Or gosh, Randall Cobb wasn't on the field. Who gives a rip? Michael Gallup was there. The best offensive line in football was there. Zeke was there for almost every big play. And what about the previous 4 hours? You had so many breaks in this game, Dallas. The weather was perfect. I mean, the weather was perfect. You were incredibly healthy. You had an Eagles team falling apart. I don't care about your problems. Give me solutions. I mean, today, all you Philly fans kept saying, this is the biggest game for Carson Wentz ever. No, it wasn't. He was an MVP and got you home field advantage the year you won the Super Bowl. But I'll tell you what, I didn't buy into it. But since you said it was, it is, and start building a statue right next to Nick Foles. Get it done in the next year or two. Just build it right next to it, because they're not building one for Foles in Jacksonville, I can tell you that. And you've been lecturing me for 2 years that Foles is the future. And I laughed at you and I mocked you. And finally, in the biggest crisis with the least help, Carson Wentz did exactly what Howie Roseman, the GM, knew he would do. That we can lean on him if things go poorly. And for Philadelphia, they mostly won't, because they have a good owner and a great coach and a great GM. They mostly will never have to ask Carson Wentz to do this again. But it's nice to know that if they do, he can take the stagecoach and put it through the desert on his back and carry him. I mean, complaining that Dak didn't have Amari Cooper is like complaining your private jet showed up 9 minutes late. Okay, Carson Wentz didn't have a private jet. He flew coach back of the plane. And at 33,000 feet, the emergency door opened up. He had to hold it closed, serve drinks, and land the plane. And he did. And Philadelphia is not going to win the Super Bowl. They can't. They can't. But he got him across the desert. He got him across the regular season finish line with one more Sunday win over the Giants. They win the division. And they're not a great team. They're just physically not. Teams like this don't win the Super Bowl. Teams like Baltimore win it, San Francisco, Kansas City. Those are the kind of team, the Saints, that win it. A lot of dynamic players, most of them healthy. You can kind of sense it early November. That looks like a Super Bowl team. Philadelphia, those kind of teams don't win the Super Bowl. But you got to put it in perspective. The Super Bowl, though it's the goal, Once you had major cluster injuries in hugely important positions, secondary, O-line, running back, receiver, cross off the Super Bowl. There are other wins in football, and the win is today when you've got nothing to work with. Carson Wentz is worth every penny and can carry you. And that's all you want from franchise quarterbacks. And it's amazing to me because we make excuses for everybody. Good God, Aaron Rodgers and Cam Newton are 1 and 1A. We make excuses. Baker Mayfield falls into that until yesterday. But what Wentz did over the last month is remarkable. Nothing went right for this team, and he made it right for 4 straight weeks. And let me shift gears to a guy I just mentioned, Baker Mayfield. Isn't it funny sometimes how things can look so differently when they're mostly the same? So Baker Mayfield's record right now as a professional football quarterback is 12-16. And the knock on him, he throws too many picks. Sam Darnold's record is 10-15. The knock on him is he throws too many picks. Both today are 6-9. By the way, they both just got crushed by the Ravens in the last 2 weeks, and their numbers were nearly identical. Baker, when he got crushed, had an 84 quarterback rating, 61% completions, 192 yards. Sam Darnold's quarterback rating was mid-80s, little over 200 yards, 56% completion. Both are dealing with coaching instability this year and dysfunctional franchises. So much is the same. Yet Sam Darnold is loved and cherished and thought of highly by the Jets faithful. And Baker Mayfield was booed yesterday and flipped off by fans. Same basic records as starters, same basic flaw. We question both of their coaches. They're both dysfunctional organizations. They both lost to the Ravens in the last couple of weeks, and their numbers were virtually identical. But when Darnold lost to the Ravens, it was, I saw things I liked because he's easy to root for. Humble people are like that. And when Baker lost to the Ravens, he is flipped off by fans and they boo him. Cocky, snarky, too many commercials, in love with himself. This is why I said from day one, I'm not handing my franchise, valued probably over $5 billion, to Baker Mayfield and that personality. And I would hand my franchise, though deeply flawed mechanically, to Sam Darnold as a franchise quarterback. Darnold doesn't have Mahomes or Wentz's talent. He's not as athletically gifted as Deshaun or Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson. But I said I'd draft Darnold because I think, A, he's more talented than Baker, and B, he's a lot more mature than Baker. They've had the same career, the same dysfunction, the same coaching issues, the same turmoil at coach, the same interceptions, the same record, losing to often the same teams. In fact, Baker's Browns are 2-0 against Darnold Jets. But who does the fan base respect? Who do they like? Which quarterback do they find optimism in ugly losses to Baltimore? Which quarterback's not being flipped off? This is exactly why I said Baker, to me, as a franchise quarterback, is undraftable. His personality is not built to overcome the chaos Cleveland will force him to deal with. And Darnold's personality is the kind I would build around with a franchise similarly in cold weather that is due to give Darnold a lot of instability, coaching chaos, and dysfunction for 10 years. I know Colin right, Colin wrong's 50 minutes away, but yesterday was a great example of why I called one guy undraftable and why I would have loved to have drafted the other. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.